Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Rowan here. We are starting Unit 3, which will be dealing with parallel lines and angles, although we're not quite at parallel lines yet. Uh, First, we will start with a little vocabulary. A transversal line, it's basically a line that intersects two other lines. Two or more other lines, that is. So, if you look down at the picture here, line T would be our transversal. And when we are talking about transversals, every transversal, when it intersects two other lines, it makes 8 angles. And those angles are going to have special relationships with each other based on whether or not the lines that it intersects are parallel or not. And when we talk about the angles, we talk about interior, which is the green part, and the exterior, which is the blue part. So interior, inside, exterior, outside. So the exterior angles would be 1, 2, 7, and 8. The interior angles would be 3, 4, 5, and 6 in this drawing right here. Okay. So if we look at our angles here, same side, also known as consecutive interior angles. So these are so this would be like angles 4 and 5 and angles 3 and 6. So 3 and 6, 4 and 5 would be our examples. So they're on the interior and they lie on the same side of the transversal. Next, we'll move on to alternate interior angles. And alternate interior angles would be like 3 and 5 and 4 and 6. So alternate means opposite. So two alternate interior angles are angles that are on the interior and they lie on opposite sides of the transversal. So 4 and 6, 4 and 6 would be one set, and then the other set, 4 and 6, these are interior, and they lie on opposite sides of the transversal. So you can also write 3 and 5. But yeah. We'll do a little bit of erasing just to clear up this image a little bit. So next, we are going to take a look at our exterior angles. So these should be pretty easy to figure out. So same side exterior angles are non-adjacent. By the way, what we mean by non-adjacent, we mean that they don't touch each other. So like we can't use 1 and 2. We can use 1 and 8. Yeah, so 1 and 8 are angles. So these are exterior angles that lie on the same side of the transversal. Okay. And 2 and 7 you could also put as your example. And I guess if you've been paying attention to the other three, you can probably figure out what alternate exterior angles are. But alternate exterior angles, I'll just say it so you definitely understand. Alternate exterior angles would be like 1 and 7. So those are angles, they're non-adjacent exterior angles that lie on opposite sides of the transversal. So 7 and angle 1. That's an angle 1, not a 4. Non-adjacent exterior angles, and they are on opposite sides of the transversal. Okay. So, corresponding angles, these are a little bit different. So, corresponding angles are going to lie on the same side of the transversal, and they're in the same positions. So what does that mean? You'll notice that top left, there's a top left angle for each one. So you'd say top left goes with top left, top right goes with top right, bottom right goes with bottom right, and bottom left goes with bottom left. So we would have angle 1 and angle 5 would be corresponding, 2 and 6 would be corresponding, 7 and 8 would be corresponding. Sorry, I mean 3 and 7, not 7 and 8. 2 and 6, 3 and 7, and then 4 and 8. So 2 and 6 would be a good example for you to write down. Angle 2 and angle 6. But you could use any of the pairs that I just mentioned. So 4 goes with, let's see, 8. Perfect. 4 and 8, just to give you a second example. Okay, angle 3 goes with angle 7. I'm going to give you all the examples just so that we are absolutely rock solid with these, because this does tend to be one that's a little bit tricky. Okay. So, same positions. And let's try to do some on our own. So angle 1 and angle 2 are corresponding angles. So if you want, just try to pause the video and see if you can label this correctly. And if you got that one, then you are absolutely correct. Good job. 3 and 4 are alternate interior angles. So again, just pause the video. Try to find where 4 should go. So 3 is there. And then angle 4 should be down there. Okay. If we're doing 5 and 6, those are same side interior angles. So let's find where we would label 6, and it should be right down there. Yep, right down there. And lastly, we'll look at D. So 7 and 8 are alternate exterior angles. So we want something on the outside of the railroad tracks. So 7's right there, and so are the one on the opposite side of the transversal, and still on the exterior will be that one up there. Cool. So let's move along to the next page. Okay, so there are two main relationships when you have parallel lines. So parallel lines, in case you don't remember, are basically two lines that just go alongside each other and they never intersect each other. So think of railroad tracks. Railroad tracks are made of parallel lines and they have these little arrows on them to show you that they're parallel. That's an important symbol to recognize and to realize what those mean, because you'll see lines labeled on the SOL like that. Alright, now let's just take a look at 1 and 2. Now, you may remember from the first page, these are corresponding angles. Okay. Corresponding angles. And the relationship is that corresponding angles are always congruent to each other. And you can actually kind of just see this by looking at it, but in case it's not obvious, just remember that relationship. So if A is parallel to B, then angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. So that means their measures are equal. So if angle 1 is 120 degrees, then angle 2 is 120 degrees. Or if angle 1 is 110, angle 2 is 110 as well. Alright, next, Alright, we're trying to scroll down. It's a struggle. Smartboard doesn't want to scroll. Alright, let's take a look at this one. Now, if you remember from the previous page, what kind of angles are these? They are alternate interior angles. Interior angles. And you can just abbreviate this to alt-int. That's probably what I'll do most often in class. But we'll just write it out for now. And these are also congruent. And the way that you can think about this is that angle 4 is a vertical angle to the one that is corresponding to angle 3. Alright, but let's move on just a little bit. Angle 5 and angle 6, we have a pair of alternate exterior angles. Alternate exterior. Right, because they're on the outside of the railroad tracks. We'll write it in a fancy green color, feeling a little Christmassy. And these are also congruent. So we're seeing some patterns here. There's lots of congruent angles in these sections. So let's see if the last one is also congruent. So in this case, it kind of looks like they might not be, because it looks like angle 7 is a lot bigger than angle 8. So we might be in for something a little bit different. And if you recall, these are called consecutive interior angles or same side interiors. You might see either one on the test. Personally, I like consecutive better, but same side is a little bit easier to write. Okay, and these angles are supplementary. So if you recall from Unit 1, supplementary means that their measures add up to 180 degrees. And if you look at 9 and 10, so these are same side exterior angles. And I'll give you 3 guesses as to what their relationship is. And the first 2 don't count. Same side, consecutive exterior angles. And these guys are also supplementary. So you should be noticing a pattern by now. Whenever you have 2 parallel lines that are cut by a transversal, the angles are always going to be supplementary or congruent, and you can usually tell which one it is just by looking at them. So that's all I have for today. We will study this more in class, so enjoy your weekend, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye, guys.